So what's up, Kat? How are we doing?
Hey, so good. Ready to head into the new year. It's as we were just saying before we started recording, like super busy time of year for us,
Right,
for sure in the
yes.
fitness industry. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my, it's so funny how it's like every year is just like clockwork, right?
Yes,
It's like they
always.
get the signal like, okay, this is gonna be the year that I get on it, and then that's when we get the phone calls and the
Yes.
bookings, and which is cool, which is
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I love it. No complaints.
Right. And what I like though is that out of the group of people that come in, there is a percentage that like stick with it throughout the year. Which is always
Absolutely.
good. I always
Yeah.
call it like, it's like we find our new group of like dedicated people to come on.
Yeah, and even like, with me and my friends and everything, like finding new things that we like. Like a friend and I a couple of years ago decided, okay, we're gonna run a half marathon this year. And we discovered we love running. And I still run almost every day because, I made that goal at the beginning of the year. So you find those things that you just stick with.
Yeah, so it's funny. So you decided to run a half marathon, and then when was that?
That was, oh gosh, maybe like 7 years ago.
7 years
Yeah.
ago, and then you stuck with it all that time.
Yeah, I've been running almost every day for 7 years, so apparently I like it.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So okay, so today we're gonna go through some stretches, a little bit of workout.
Wonderful.
And then more importantly, we're gonna talk about the importance of yoga and strength training.
Love it.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna go for a stretch where we're gonna go lunge and then twist. So we'll go lunge and then we'll turn towards the bent leg. So again, how long have you been practicing?
Yoga?
Yeah.
Oh my God, since I was like 19, so almost like 15 years.
Almost 15 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And what got you into it?
Well, I was a dance major in college, and I heard that Pilates was good for stress relief. So I started doing Pilates, loved it, but realized it wasn't actually good for stress relief. Everybody said that's yoga. And then I started taking yoga and just fell in love with it right away. I think a lot of people with dance backgrounds do because it really plays to your strengths, flexibility and things like that. And started teaching when I was 19 and
Okay.
have been at it ever since.
Oh, wow. And so you fell in love with it as soon as you started.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what else, during that time, were you doing anything else, doing anything else for workouts, or was after dance, Pilates, then yoga?
I was a fitness instructor too in general at my college's gym. So I was doing a little bit of like light strength training, like Zumba type aerobics, things like that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How'd you like that?
It was fun. I've actually been trying to find like a old school dance aerobics class here in LA recently because I kind of missed just that vibe.
It's definitely old school. I remember those. Those were like,
Yes.
those are the things to go to. But I mean, I think it's like, it's one of those things where I think now we're really diversifying how we move our bodies, which is
Oh
cool.
yeah, I love
Right?
that.
So everything from dance aerobics to Pilates to there's regularly even like hip hop dance classes you
Oh,
have out
so
there.
fun.
Right? And I think it's always about, and then we'll reach down, reach up. It's just finding which one really connects with you. And I think a lot of times people just kind of leave exercise to go into the gym, and we know there's so many other ways you could do it.
Exactly, yeah.
So you do some strength training as well, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah.
And did you start the strength training after you got into your yoga routine, or is it something you kept up even when you were being a fitness instructor?
I think I kept it up. It was they were kind of parallel to each other and not really something that I combined for quite a while.
Okay.
But, I would go through phases where I would get less involved with strength training and kind of stick with the yoga. But I noticed that strength training tends to be the type of fitness that I don't naturally gravitate for.
Okay.
I'm more like cardio, more yoga, things like that. And so I know I really need strength training to balance that out. So I love to find creative ways to incorporate it and things that I know that I'll stick with it feel good.
And what do you do for your strength training?
I do like a little bit of, I don't want to call it CrossFit certainly because my husband is a CrossFitter and he'd be like, oh, that's not CrossFit.
That is hilarious.
But yeah.
He's like, don't you dare call this CrossFit.
Exactly. Some kind of CrossFit inspired work. I teach a lot of bar classes as well.
Okay.
And there are some formats with bar that use heavier weights and are a little bit less music driven. That sometimes I'll do. So yeah, a little of this, little of that, but mostly free weights, mostly body weight, not a ton of, machines and gym stuff other than like a Pilates reformer.
I've never really been a fan of gym, machines.
Yeah.
Even I've never wanted to have a machine for the gym. I just feel like they're really restrictive and they don't incorporate enough functional movement.
Agree.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's cool. So bar, And for anybody who doesn't know what bar is, could you explain bar?
Yeah, so bar is like, you could think like a ballet bar, but it's not so much ballet. It's more like small, quick movements that are very driven to the music. So you'll count the music, you'll go to the music.
Ah.
And you'll typically work with light weights just because you're moving so quickly. Sometimes people will come in and they'll grab like even a 5-pound weight and they're like, oh, this is easy. And then when they're moving so quickly, it's like, never mind, I'm grabbing the twos.
Or grab the light weights.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, today we're gonna need some hand weights for our
All
workout.
right, love it.
So we're gonna be doing some squats and coming up into curls. That should be the only one that we need the hand weights for. But what weight do you want? We have 3s, 5s, 8s.
Let's do some 5s today.
Do some 5s? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll grab them for you. And then we're good.
The middle road.
I'm gonna grab some 8s. I'm keeping it light today for myself.
Beautiful.
And we're gonna start off squat, and then we'll come up into a hammer curl, and we'll go for 10.
Nice.
So we're down, yeah, and we'll go 10. So I know for me, I worked in a yoga studio teaching fitness classes for years.
Oh, wow.
For anybody who's in LA, Boheme Yoga on 7th and Spring is an amazing yoga studio, and they incorporated some fitness classes. So I used to do a core and cardio class, and some of the people in there would say, they would know I was a trainer, and they would say, oh, what if I wanted to do some one-on-one training and do some strength training? And I think one of the biggest misperceptions is that, and good, we're gonna go alternating side lunge. So we can put these down now. And then we're gonna just go side to side, alternating side lunge. Is that when they do strength training, especially for women, is that they're gonna bulk up.
Yeah,
You know?
which is always interesting because you'd have to try really hard to bulk up, like things so hard. My husband, you know, the CrossFitter, he definitely works very hard to bulk up. He has to eat a lot, take a lot of supplements, do a lot of very specific workouts. And, you know, there's the whole like hormone thing that comes into play too. So if you're not trying to, you're probably not gonna bulk up.
Right, yeah. And then next we're gonna go just regular squats and we'll get 10. Yeah, and that's the thing I think that people misunderstand is that you really have to try to bulk up, especially as a woman,
Yeah.
right?
One thing that I tell people lately that's been kind of encouraging is I'll just say, you know, if you hold heavier weights or use heavier weights, you'll burn more calories. And that always does it. It's like, really? Okay.
It's true. And good, then last, we're just gonna go presses straight up for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. And I think what's also is important, which people, it gets overlooked, is the importance of stretching that you have with yoga and strength training.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I found myself, if I'm not getting a good stretch before and after my strength training, it's like I start to feel the lack of mobility. Sometimes the knee pain, hip pain kicks in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I'm teaching like strength focused classes, a lot of times people don't want to do the mobility work, like even something like, you know, like a halo or something like that. And, you know, like this is mobilizing your shoulders. Well, I don't really feel it. It's not a heavy weight. But that's not the point. The point is to gain that mobility so that you can do more and it can be more sustainable. And it's a lot of just kind of explaining the why, like you said, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like that's something I would really love to get into because I have a few clients where they'll do strength training and they don't get enough mobility work outside. And then next thing we're starting to notice some imbalances, whether left hip or right hip is off, things like that. And we stretch, but probably not enough. But it's how do you address the almost tedious mindset that you have to get over when it comes to like mobility training? Because I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go here. So I mean, like, so is it you just the yoga you can go and take care of it, or like how do you get your mind focused on doing the little tedious exercises?
I think it depends on the person. With some people, incorporating that bit by bit into a strength workout, especially if they're busy, so they don't have to do a whole separate class or a whole separate session or a whole separate thing, can be helpful. Like, okay, let's do a little mobility work in our warm up, and then let's do it in between during our rest period, and then visit like some more static stretches at the end, and that can be helpful. Whereas other people, they're like, no, I want my workout to be my workout and my yoga to be my yoga, and I want those things to be separate. So in that case, we might look at, you know, taking a yoga class, or even one thing that's kind of fun, I used to have a friend who would train with me a lot, and we would do our stretching and just talk. We would have like fun conversations, or we would listen to a podcast or watch a movie and pair the stretching that we didn't really want to do with something that was kind of like a little treat. So
I
that
love
was always
that.
nice.
So it's us really understanding the importance of mobility training, which is what yoga does. Yoga gets the mobility in the proper places, proper parts of the body, so it can maximize your strength training and prevent injury, which is the biggest part.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And some people like to incorporate into the strength training. Some people like to just like, let me have this day to go do yoga. I think I'm one of those, I just need a day to go do yoga.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's me. So it's like I try to dedicate at least 1 or 2 days out the week where I'm gonna go get my yoga, and then it's like never fails. I go to do my strength training and I feel much better. I get way more out of it. And it's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
And you know, one thing that I learned when I first started teaching yoga, like I said, I was 19, I was really young. And so I felt kind of insecure about, oh, people aren't gonna think I know enough. So I just wanted to say everything that, everything that I knew. Well, this muscle is connected to this and that. And nobody cared, they just wanted to feel good. And now I'm much more invested in making the yoga feel good, making it a really nice, delightful experience, because that's what brings people back. That's what makes it something they wanna do.
Yes. Yeah. When you do your yoga classes or your yoga training with different individuals, are there any common places that are tight that you found like with certain demographics? Like you notice, okay, men usually have tight hair, women usually tight hair, or young people, older people. Is there any places that you notice like tend to have a specific area that's usually overworked or tight?
I think that what I tend to notice most is how activities that people do, like certain types of athletes have certain commonalities more than anything. Certainly there's always the stereotype, men have tight hamstrings in yoga. Yeah. It's almost like a running joke because I have some, friends who are men who've been teaching forever. They're like, I don't have tight hamstrings. But in general, probably men do tend to have tighter hamstrings, yeah. But certainly not everybody. Runners especially, I've noticed since I started running that I'm so thankful for my yoga because my calves get so tight, just unbearably tight. And my quads tend to get really tight too. Like actually a lot of women are quad dominant, I've noticed too. Like we tend to definitely be a lot stronger and tighter, and strength and tightness don't always correlate, but a lot of times they do too. In our quads, whereas we need a little bit more strengthening with like hamstrings, things like that. So even at the Pilates studio where I teach, we really just focus lower body mostly on glutes and hamstrings because we're like, everybody's quads are there. Your quads are fine.
Quads are fine.
Yeah.
You've worked that enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. We'll go back to squat curl. We'll go back to squat curl. We'll go 10. Okay, so definitely, I've noticed that as well. Like if you're a person who runs, maybe skis, different things like that, it's gonna come with a series of stretches that you're going to need to do because of where you typically tend to be tight.
Yeah.
Right? And do you incorporate any foam rolling into your stretching?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Foam rolling, and even more so like massage ball work tends to be, because it's a little easier to, have someone bring some massage balls along with them, or for me to bring them too. And I think sometimes it's a little bit easier to find a little bit more targeted work with massage balls. So like my friend Jill has this product called yoga tune-up balls that I use a lot, but there's all sorts of different kinds now. But that's almost always part of every session.
Nice. And I think it's good to use in combination, right? Whether you dedicate 1 day or 2 to doing your yoga, do your foam rolling, things like that.
Exactly. I always keep buying like new little packs of massage balls because I just give them to everybody when I meet them.
Every time I go to yoga, the instructor is definitely like, here, just take these.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's funny. And then so for you said with running, your calves tend to be tight.
Yeah, I was really thankful for a particular yoga stretch, which is a little bit more almost like myofascial release focus that I learned when I was really young, which is just to take a blanket, roll it up, place it behind your knees and sit back, and then gradually roll it down your calves. That feels so good.
Oh wow,
after you've
that
been
helps
running.
a lot.
Yeah.
Explain that one more time. So you take a blanket, roll it up. Okay.
Nice thin roll, and you can kind of decide how thin or thick you want it, but then you place it behind your knees, come down to kneeling, and you sit for a few breaths, you know, make sure that it's not so intense, so much pressure that you can't breathe. So you can lift your hips up or lower them down to kind of calibrate that. And then you gradually roll the blanket down closer toward your ankles, and it feels really nice.
Oh, I love the sound of that one.
Yeah.
It really sounds good. I have a few clients that have tight calves. One thing that I think is so important is understanding whether you're going light weights or you're going heavier weights. A lot of times people have strength training incorporated into their program because they have aesthetic goals, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So whether it's like a guy wants to get a bigger chest, somebody wants to get a bigger butt, whatever those things, arms, and we have to realize that you may not be seeing results because you're not mobile or you have some sort of muscle imbalances. And it can be like, you don't have to lift harder, you don't have to lift heavy, you don't have to go harder, you just have to go and actually make sure that your muscles are balanced and you're getting the right range of motion.
Yes, and that you're using what you think you're using to do the work. So many times, especially it's like, oh, I need to lift heavier, so you go really heavy, but you're just using momentum and you're not really doing anything but throwing out your back at that point.
Exactly, you're setting that right up.
Yeah.
You're setting it right up. And I know, like for me specifically, because I do a lot of running, my hip flexors and quads get super tight when I'm running.
Oh, hip flexors too. Yeah.
Right, especially outdoors. And then when I go do my squats, because they're so tight, it's like I feel myself going like this as I'm squatting, right?
Yes.
And then now I'm not getting my glutes and hamstrings at all during the squat.
Exactly.
When the squat has to get the whole leg. You know? Yeah. And then it's like, lo and behold, go do the yoga, go do the stretching, and then it maximizes the strength training.
Yeah, and you know, so often it is those tight calves that really restrict us in our squat. So we're just like, why can't I get down any further? And then once you get that myofascial release, that mobility work, such a difference.
Yes, I think it's very important for people to understand that if you're a person who does strength training, yoga will help tremendously. And if you're doing yoga, strength training will help that conversely.
So much, yeah, because there's so much that yoga does, but there's also so much that it can't do. Like one big thing we talk about a lot in the yoga world is there's not a lot of pulling movements. There's tons of pushing movements. You're in planks, you're in down dogs, you're in chaturanga. I love handstands. Handstands, you have to push into the ground to hold your handstand, but it's really hard to get pulling unless you really incorporate other equipment, something. So lats tend to be super weak in yoga, people who just do yoga. And so we need to kind of get creative and look for ways to do that for sure.
You know, it's funny, as much as I've taken yoga, I've never really noticed that it's true. You go through a full yoga class, a lot of pushing. So I guess that's good to know that if you're a person who does primarily yoga and you're thinking about doing strength training, it'll be great to add some pulling exercises, start working the posterior chain.
Yes,
right?
so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had, and it will go 10. I had this one client, she's been with me now for years, and I met her in the yoga class, and she was like, I'm coming here trying to, put on some muscle. I'm like, well, this is not enough, just this, right?
Yeah.
So she kept the yoga, incorporated the strength training, and because she already had the range of motion and the good balance from yoga, her results were just like so quick.
Oh, that's awesome.
Quick. It was just like, I blinked and then one day she came in and it's like I can see abs everywhere, legs looking stronger.
So cool.
And she was like, what? I'm like, it happened, this was so quick,
Yeah, oh, love that.
We'll go side lunges.
And I think, not always the case, but a lot of people who do yoga are really, driven toward a routine. And maybe that's the Ayurveda kind of influence there.
Yes.
But I notice people who do yoga, they do it every day, they stick with it. And so if you already have that mindset and you apply it to something like strength training or any other modality, then you're gonna see results if you stick with it.
Yes, if you keep that routine up, which is, and I remember we spoke about this before with the Ayurveda. It's like finding that rhythm and that cycle that best complements you. Yeah. We get 3 more. 3, 2 more. 2, and 1. Good. And I think the time of day is always important.
Yeah.
Is there a time of day that you enjoy doing yoga?
Yeah, I like to do it more in the evening, whereas I like to do kind of more intense like cardio or strength work or something else earlier in the day. And then I like to wind down with yoga and let that be the little treat, the little reward. It also, and that's if I'm doing a more gentle yoga. If I'm doing like a yoga sculpt class or, a really hard, hot yoga class, I don't want to do that at 8 p.m. I'm going to do that like in the morning as well.
Get it out the way.
Yeah.
Get it done. Yeah, it's funny because with yoga for myself, I like doing nighttime because like I swear after that I'm like ready to knock out. I'm ready to go to sleep. Like I'm done. And that's when I think, because I still think we have to remember anytime we're doing strength training, whether you're going lightweight, heavyweights, even though it's a good stress, it's still a stressor on the body. Then you couple that with other stress, which could be negative stress during the day. Yoga just helps to balance out your nervous system.
Oh, so much. That's really, that's what keeps me coming back to it, is the effects of my nervous system, for sure. I know I have a friend, I think I might have even mentioned this on the other podcast, but she said to me that she had, she would always talk about the nervous system, that the nervous system is the queen, is what she would say. And one day I was doing some handstand presses and I was just so stressed and I couldn't do them. And the more frustrated I got, the harder they were. And it was like, I guess I just can't do this. And then the next day, had a walk with my husband, had a latte, was feeling good. And I was like, I'll try it. So easy. And I said to her, I was like, why was it so easy? And she's like, your nervous system. It was ready. Yeah.
Nervous system. And the way I like to describe it to people is, if you think about you having a certain amount of energy in your body, whatever that metric is, the more you can focus all that energy into one place when you're performing an activity, the stronger you're going to be.
Absolutely.
When you're stressed out, it takes away from that energy's ability to focus, right? So it's like, now you probably can't do that handstand because you're stressed out, and that stress is taking away from some of your strength.
Right. Yeah. I think you reminded me too that a lot of the mindset training we do in yoga and just the focus and the ability to be with yourself and notice things about yourself, that can be really helpful when it comes to strength training. To notice not only, oh, my foot is placed here, my shoulder's placed here, but also to notice, oh, am I breathing? Am I holding my breath? Am I clenching my jaw? Is this side stronger? Is this side stronger? And you can get into those little details that can really make a big shift.
I'm so glad you said that, because we never think about the importance of yoga for body mechanics, right? So now, if I'm going to do a push-up, if I'm going to do a squat, if I'm going to do anything, I want to be able to feel everything from my toes to my fingertips.
Right.
But a lot of times, if somebody's going, even like, let's say for guys, anybody, but love like the bench dumbbell chest press. Love going super heavy to build the chest up, right? Even then, if your feet are up, you should still feel your core. You should still feel your glutes, your hamstrings,
for
your
sure.
feet, things like that, which I think is very, very important. You know, that, in addition to that, is balance. From yoga. Like, there's so many times I go to take the yoga, and which one is this? Tell me this pose. I was forget this one. Where you put this here and then
Garudasana, eagle pose.
Okay, eagle pose.
Yeah.
When I haven't been going for a while, I can feel it. Like I'm teetering all over the place.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right?
Balance is always, and it's interesting too, because I think from dance, I can balance on my toes all day long. Like if I'm on a tiptoe, balance easy. But if I'm on a flat foot, and I think a lot of this comes from the running, because I started to get foot cramps and everything, I'm like, oh, this is so hard. And that's kind of almost an asset, because that's hard for so many people. And when I'm like, hey, it's hard for me too, but it gets better, it gets easier. And part of the work I always say is, if your balance feels challenged right now, good. That's the point. That's why we're here. If your balance wasn't challenged, we'd have to make it harder. Once they have permission, like, you want to get to that place where I think I might fall, what's going to happen? And that's where you need to be. And that's where you try to find that center and that support. And once it's easy, make it harder.
Right, and find that connectivity.
Exactly.
Right, which is so important.
Yeah, your core, everything.
Yeah. Well, glad for you stopping by.
Yeah,
so we can address this yoga and this strength training.
Absolutely,
and
both
hopefully
so
people can take something to apply to their workout programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, good seeing you.
You too.